Hey, what's up, guys? Dr. Jaws here, and welcome back to another shark study party. And this time it's a special episode featuring a new region. We've talked about it a lot. We've talked about a lot of the species that live in this region, but I'm excited to dive into more detail. These are sharks of the Caribbean. And it's kind of cool that we're really diving into this because I feel like we've circled the Caribbean in terms of like there's some famous dive locations like Roatan and U.S. Virgin Islands, and I just like parts of Mexico. It's just like it's such a famous location, and I'm excited to see the sharks that live here and kind of go into more detail about some of the common tropical Atlantic species that we're familiar with, like bull sharks and great hammerheads and nurse sharks, but also see some of the rarer species that might be found in this region as well. So I think we'll just dive right in. Firstly, kind of doing a broad overview or a complete overview of sharks that do live in the Caribbean, and then kind of going to different dive operators to see which species are more likely to be encountered, as well as a little bit of footage, and if we have time, a bit of focus on the Caribbean reef shark, Carcharodontis perezii, which I think we did an episode on that species already, but it'll be kind of cool to revisit with new information that we can see. But I think just to get started, let's see the total biodiversity of the Caribbean Sea. This is the FAO guide, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. These are great shark guides, and they're usually regionally focused. But this one is Identification Guide to Common Sharks and Rays of the Caribbean. And let's see if we can identify some of these right now. So I know this one on the top left is definitely a lemon shark. Has that characteristic broad snout, very large and kind of wide dorsal fin, actually wide pectoral fins too. We've got a hammerhead of some kind here. I want to say this is a scalloped hammerhead. It could be a smooth hammerhead. It's hard to tell between, or like just seeing the side profile and not really seeing the cephalofoil. But based on the dorsal fin size and pectoral fin size, it's definitely not a great hammerhead. This is a little bit more broad. So it's either a scalloped or a smooth, but I think it's a scalloped because scalloped hammerheads are more tropical oriented. We've got a spotted eagle ray on the top right. We've got what looks like an Atlantic stingray here on the left. I'm not sure what this is. This looks almost like a southern stingray, but I'm not 100% sure. Here's a sharp-nosed shark. So this can either be the Atlantic sharp-nosed shark, Rhizopriondon terranovi, or the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark, Rhizopriondon porosus. I know the Atlantic one has spots. I think the Caribbean one does not, but we'll verify that today as we dive into the species here. We got a bullnose ray right here, so really cool to see. We got two makos. So this is actually kind of cool seeing two mako sharks side by side. So the one on the left is Isurus paucus, is the long fin mako, and you can see its namesake with these very exaggerated pectoral fins. And then the one on the right is the short fin mako, Isurus oxyrhynchus. So you can tell with the short pectoral fin. And also the coloration is like a little bit different, and the head shape is a little bit different too. But the mako shark on the right is kind of like the classic, famous mako species, made probably most famous by Old Man in the Sea. But the one on the left is also a very common, well not common, but just as common I would say, kind of mako shark. I think both are relatively... Actually no, I think longfin makos are a little bit more deep water and they're a little bit rarer than shortfin makos. So... But very cool to see both of them side by side. We've got what appears to be a Cuban dogfish here, or a species closely related to the Cuban dogfish. So this very long dorsal spine, really beautiful coloration. And then finally we have on this title page some kind of sawfish. So it's either the large tooth or the small tooth, or a species I'm not familiar with, but large tooth and small tooth are in the tropical Atlantic. So I want to wager this is a small tooth, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm excited to learn as we go through this guide. So we'll kind of skip some of the FAO blurbs. But again, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations does shark guides from around the world, so it's really cool to see a regional guide. We got a brief overview of the orders, so Hexantriforms, which are the cow sharks on the top left, Scoliforms, which are the dogfish on the top right. Lambdiforms, which are the mackerel sharks on the left, Erectolobiforms, which are the carpet sharks in the right. And actually, we'll just kind of highlight the key features of each order. So these are the orders of sharks, some of the main groupings of sharks that you can find in this region. So Hexantiforms, which are the cow sharks or frilled sharks, they have 6 or 7 gill slits, so it's a big characteristic that makes this group unique. And they only have one dorsal fin, so there's no other sharks group that has that. So the single dorsal fin and the 6 or 7 gill slits are clear identifiers for this order of sharks. For squaliforms, no anal fin is a very helpful feature, but there's actually other orders that don't have an anal fin either. So, but this is a helpful feature for this group. The other sharks that don't have an anal fin are the saw sharks and the angel sharks, I believe, don't have one. But those two body types are just so extreme that if you see like a classic looking shark as far as like having a cylindrical body without an anal fin, that is one of the dogfish or dog sharks, or I guess dogfish, the squaliforms. The mackerel sharks says eyes without a movable lower eyelid, so it's referring to the nictitating membrane. So mackerel sharks don't have it. They do have an anal fin. They have also really large heads. I learned recently, by the way, that part of the reason why mackerel sharks have very large heads and kind of elongated heads where the gills are typically very large and further back in the body is to maximize oxygen exchange. It's a evolutionary adaptation that helps them, retain or I guess absorb as much oxygen as possible as they swim through the water. And this lends to these sharks' remarkable lifestyle of a lot of them are very fast predators, like the white sharks and the makos, porbeagles, and thresher sharks. They need that extra room in their head to maximize oxygen intake, which is really cool. So it's kind of like a way to fuel really fast-moving predators. So it's very interesting. Erectolobiforms, which are the carpet sharks, the key feature is that the mouth is well in front of the eyes. So this is pretty famously exemplified by the whale shark. If you see whale shark photos, you see that the mouth is just right there, right at the very tip, like near the tip of the snout. Whereas other sharks, like the white shark in this example, the mouth is underslung. Most sharks have an underslung mouth, but the carpet sharks, or Erectolobiforms, have the mouth right in front. We have the classic Carcharodontiforms here. So these are the requiem sharks. The key feature is that their eye, I guess you would name the order ground sharks, but their eyes have the nictitating membrane, or the eyes with a movable lower eyelid. So this nictitating membrane is unique to this order. There's no other shark that has this feature, so it's a really easy identifier for that. You have the Squatiniforms. This one's also very easy because these are the angel sharks. They're always flat. So pectoral fins are not attached to the head, body flattened and ray-like. There's no anal fin, and the mouth is also terminal, kind of like the carpet sharks. And then finally, they skipped to rays here. So this guide covers both sharks and rays. So we've got sawfish, Pristioforms is a kind of ray. The reason why these animals are rays, even though they have very tall dorsal fins, is that their pectoral fins are fused to their head, so that's a ray feature. And then their gills are on the underside of the body, which is also a ray feature. Same thing for Rhinobatiforms. These are the guitar fish. These are a kind of ray as well, because the pectoral fins are fused to the head, and then the gills are on the underside of the body. We've got these beautiful Myliobatiforms. So these are like the pelagic rays. So these are like eagle rays, and I think manta rays are Myliobatiforms as well. Oh, and I guess they include everything else as like stingrays as Myliobatiforms. Alright, so as we kind of peruse this guide... Oh, hey! Minjas, welcome back! Good to see you! The smaller cephalophone hammerheads seem to usually have that slightly yellow coloration, though I know a lot of people say it's important not to use color as species identifier. Really cool observation, though. Makes sense of what somebody would have thought about. Hey, Quackers, welcome back. Good to see you. hope you both had a great weekend. I had a very relaxing weekend myself, and I'm excited to. I tried to go diving 2 weeks ago, but my dive got canceled due to the to weather. But I'm going back to the same location this weekend, so I'm really really excited about that. So fingers crossed. This time of year, I'm going to be in the Mid-Atlantic region, so specifically off the coast of New Jersey. So this time of year, because it's August, we do have tropical fish getting swept up the Gulf Stream and sometimes accidentally getting close to coastal environments. So specifically butterfly fish, which I'm really excited. I'm fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll see some. And then we do get tropical sharks like bonnethead sharks and Atlantic sharpnose sharks. I'm hoping to see. It's really unlikely, but hoping to see some too. So we will see what happens. So fingers crossed. Even though I didn't go diving in that location a couple weeks ago, I did go snorkeling just to check it out. And I saw river otters, which is really fun. So I'm excited to actually go deeper into the water and see what in the world is down there. So I'm very, very excited. So, and I'll bring an underwater camera, so I will share anything that I see. So hopefully it's going to be a good trip. We'll see what happens. So, so how to use this guide for the FAO guide. Again, these guys are fantastic. I really, really, I'm going to share this in the chat because these are great resources. And there's so many regions that they cover. But for this one, the purpose of FAO guides is a quick identifier, mostly for fisheries, so that if you're on the boat and you don't know what you caught, it's a quick reference for what kind of species this is. So they have the family name on the left side here. Oh, this one's actually special. It's going to include habitat stuff, which is great. The scientific name and authorship. So you have the Latin binomial of the genus and species. And then the name of the scientist who formally described the species. I always forget that white sharks are named by Linnaeus, like Carl Linnaeus himself, which is kind of wild. So the father of taxonomy in 1758. So it's kind of cool that white sharks are known to science for centuries. It's amazing. The FAO name in English, French, and Spanish. So these are really important. So the most important name in a shark is the scientific name, just like in any animal. It's the Latin name, which is used around the world. It doesn't matter what culture, what country. Every country that does have some kind of science or scientific approach to sharks will always use the Latin name. It doesn't matter if the language is not Latin based or English based or whatever. It's or I guess I should say like Romantic or Germanic or whatever. It's not. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be the Latin name no matter what. But there's these extra FAO names where if you had to use a common name, there's at least a standardized common name for a species. So a great example is that in the United States, we call Squalus acanthius spiny dogfish, but the FAO English name, like the proper global name, is piked dogfish for that species. Another example would be Carcharias taurus. In Australia, they call them grey nurse sharks, but the proper English name is, the global English name is sand tiger shark. So FAO names are pretty interesting as far as like trying to have some kind of standard or global standard for major languages, and also it's these three are three of the 6 United Nations official languages, and if I remember correctly, it's English. Actually, I gotta look this up. It's English, French, Spanish, Arabic. I want to say Chinese is an official United language. English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, I think. Let me look this up really quick. Sorry. What are the 6? I know there's 6 of them. The 6 official languages of the UN. Arabic, Chinese. Okay, yeah. Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. Those are the official United Nations languages. So everything that the United Nations does will be published in one of those 6 languages. So it's kind of cool for this guide that these 3 are used. It's also really interesting that these 3 are prominent in the Caribbean. So it kind of makes sense that those are the only 3 mentioned. You have the FAO3 alpha code. I think are useful for maybe statistics, but otherwise, I think these are just kind of confusing. Like, I mean, I think they have probably internal purposes that are more useful. I think they're not really commonly applicably useful personally, but anyway. The CITES listing. So CITES is a international agreement on how a species is traded. So if a animal is listed on CITES, it means it is a protected species, and there's some provisions on what you can and cannot do. So I think very recently, some sharks received the highest level of protection, which is CITES Appendix 1. But for the longest time, only a handful of shark species were CITES Appendix 2. So CITES Appendix 1 is the highest level where all trade is prohibited. But CITES Appendix 2 is trade is very strictly monitored, or there's a lot of asterisks on what you can and can't do with that. So it's some level of international agreement on how these species are traded. And on that note, if you do see a shark that has a CITES listing, it chances are it has some level of protection along with that too. So we've got the scientific illustration with field marks. The key features that help identify the species. You have the species size, so maximum size for males and females, size of maturity, and birth. So kind of fun fact, most guides, like fisheries, or maybe not fisheries, but like most like common wildlife guides will always list the maximum size. But I personally like to reference the size of maturity, because I think that's a better approximation of like what you'll see on average in the wild. I kind of feel like size of maturity is a better estimate of what to expect as far as like seeing the species, especially since sadly a lot of the large sharks are overfished and are facing a lot of conservation problems that you shouldn't really expect to see their superlatives. It would be very rare to sadly see some of the larger members of that species. So I think as an estimate of shark size, the size of maturity is a really good reference personally. And it's kind of amazing too, because when you look at like this example is the white shark. The white shark specifically is 450 on average, 450, so 400 to 500 centimeters or 4 to 5 meters at maturity. That's still a huge shark. That is a big shark. So it's just and the maximum size is 6 meters, just incredible to think about. And for conversion, let's see, we'll do meters 3.3 feet, so 5 times. So size of maturity is about 16 feet for white sharks. Maximum size is 21 feet. So huge animals. Coloration, pretty self-explanatory. Photo of a freshly caught specimen for reference. Other helpful details for identification. This feature is really cool. So bioecology, fishing methods, and maximum depth. So this is a quick little cheat sheet on where you can find the shark. And then similar species occurring in the area, showing main differences with the species on the left card. So you can see the white shark is comparable to its cousins, the two mako sharks, and the basking shark. So as far as like a quick cheat sheet for habitat, we've got estuary and rivers, so really cool sharks that are evolved to manage their osmoregulation to help enter into lower salinity areas. So these sharks are specialists that can actually access habitat and resources that other sharks can't. So it's a really unique group of sharks that get a lot of advantages, whether that is baby sharks like the bonnetheads, or actually bonnetheads is just a small shark in general, but bonnetheads or baby lemon sharks try to find a refuge from predators by hiding in these rivers and mangroves and estuaries. Or large predatory sharks that can exploit resources that other sharks can't, like the bull sharks. Like bull sharks going into this area to find prey items that aren't available to other species near shore. You got coastal pelagic sharks. So these are sharks that occupy shallow coastal waters and are kind of active in these well-lit sunny zones. Coastal demersal are coastal sharks that kind of stick to the bottom but are still in shallow water. demersal overslope, so sharks that are kind of entering that transition zone from the sunlit zone to the twilight zone. Deep water sharks, so deep water overslope or deep water around seamounts. These are sharks that really spend most of the time in the darkness, in the twilight zone or midnight zone. And then finally, oceanic epipelagic, true ocean-going sharks that don't spend their time on the coast. They are in the marine deserts. Open ocean is a very wide-spaced, nutrient-poor environment, so these sharks are specialized at zoning in on prey items that might be are in like very very specific locations in the vast open sea. These sharks are great at tracking prey in such a large area. So, let's see. Just catching up with some comments. Try and get a bunch of crafts done before the semester starts. That sounds like an awesome plan. Crafts are fantastic. I mean, as you all know, I personally love drawing. So I've been enjoying. I haven't really done it in a while, honestly. So I've been enjoying putting drawings on the community page. So and I appreciate everybody's responses to them. So thank you. I have. So I don't know if you can see it, but I have my chart of the sharks that I draw and I post on the community page. They're sharks that occur in this region, like the Virginia marine ecoregion, this time of year. So I always move drawings in and out based on the season. So right now it's August, so we have a lot of great warm water sharks here, from like the bonnethead to sharpnose shark, sand devil, sandbar shark, sand tiger, dusky smoothhound. And then as we get closer or deeper into like winter, as water is cool, this shifts out to like basking sharks and white sharks and porbeagles. So it's been a new project that I've really enjoyed doing. So thank you. So let's see, river otters. Oh my god! Also, not you need to hear this, but please think about safety before you think about getting good footage. Absolutely, and I really appreciate it. And it's the first rule of diving. And it's part of why the dive was canceled. I really, even though I wish it wasn't, safety always comes first. For diving. So and for this site in particular, it's a site that is completely fine at high tide, but as the tides change, the current picks up really quickly. So it really is a site that benefits from clear skies, no rain. You want to have as much visibility as possible. So thank you. That's a really good reminder. Safety first. Probably a lifesaver for interns hired to do the data management. Show some footage of the younger lemon sharks swimming around mangrove roots. Yes. Lemon sharks love those mangrove habitats, and a lot of little sharks love them as well. So Quacker's working on making my own shark wall. That sounds awesome. It's such that's so cool. Like it's such a fun project to do, and I've loved kind of coordinating it with the season. So so super cool. So yeah, I definitely very much support any kind of crafts, especially shark crafts. I also love for my wall, I got a physical NOAA chart. And the NOAA charts are really fun to kind of reference. So, and I think even though NOAA doesn't really, something was up with NOAA publishing them, where I don't know if they officially publish them like the physical ones anymore, since most things are digital now. But you can still buy these. They're still printed by, I think there's a I'll just like leave in the chat NOAA chart. I know there's a place you can still buy them, because I bought this one pretty recently. So yeah, it's that'd be kind of cool to add to a craft project, like having like a map of or a chart of a region of the ocean that you're interested in studying. So this is really important for this guide, fishing methods. So you have a lot of different fishing methods for fisheries that usually don't target sharks, although some places do. What's interesting is the most destructive are bottom trawling and gill nets, but Long lining, I always thought long lining was bad, but actually the bycatch rate on long lining is a little bit better than bottom trawling and gill nets. So long lines actually are a little bit cleaner than bottom trawling and gill nets, which I didn't realize for the longest time because I used to work on the VIMS long line survey. But it makes sense because bottom trawling and gill nets are kind of catching anything without abandon, whereas long lines you're selecting for animals that actively go after food items on the hook. But all of it is bad, all bycatches. But I thought it was interesting to learn recently that long lines are cleaner than the other fishing. Pursing, I'm not 100%. I'm sure that since it's a net of some kind. Harpoon is at least a little bit more selective than the others, because the others can have huge bycatch issues. As we discussed multiple times on the stream, different sharks have different sensitivities to any kind of bycatch. The most sensitive being hammerheads. Hammerheads are extremely sensitive to any kind of bycatch. The least sensitive probably being like nurse sharks or sharks that can actively pump water over the gills. Makos are actually pretty hardy as well. So I think thresher sharks are hardy too, but mako sharks definitely are a bit hardy in the face of this, but still, none of this is good, so. We could skip this. These are just like the basic anatomical features of sharks. I think most of us know these, so we'll just kind of skip this for now. Because I want to get to the species, and these can kind of take forever, so. Oh, this is important though. CITES. So the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, is an international agreement between governments aimed at protecting species of wild fauna and flora from overexploitation through international trade. A specimen of a CITES-listed species may be imported or exported or re-exported from a state party to the convention only if the appropriate document has been obtained and presented for clearance at the port of entry or exit. The species covered by CITES are listed in 3 appendices according to the degree of protection they need. So 1 is the highest. Appendix 1 includes species threatened with extinction. Trade in specimens of these species is permitted only in exceptional circumstances, that is, research. Appendix 2, so a lot of sharks are in Appendix 2, includes species not necessarily threatened with extinction, but in which trade must be controlled in order to avoid utilization incompatible with their survival. Countries will only allow trade in specimens of these species once the scientific authority of the state of export has advised that such export will not be detrimental to the survival of that species. These non-detriment findings, or NDFs, guarantee that exports of products from listed species covered by the NDF have not harmed wild populations or ecosystems. And then finally, Appendix 3 includes species that are protected in at least one country, which has asked other CITES parties for assistance in controlling the trade. Frankly, I actually didn't realize there was an Appendix 3, because sharks are either 2 or 1, and most of them being 2, so it'd be interesting if we see any Appendix 3 sharks in this document today. How to safely release sharks. I'll just kind of skim through this. Let's see. It is important to ensure that sharks are released alive, survive the stress of capture, and do not die shortly after being released. This is interesting. It is very important to use circle hooks rather than J hooks. Since circle hooks usually embed in the fish's jaw rather than the throat or stomach, they decrease life-threatening injuries. Non-stainless steel hooks are also recommended because if left in the fish, they will eventually corrode, allowing the fish to heal and continue to live healthy lives. Minimizing fight times and keeping the fish in water while removing hooks also helps to increase the survival rates. Do not use gaffs to secure sharks and avoid lifting fish out of the water. Use a de-hooking tool if possible. This avoids the risk of being bitten during hook removal. This is really actually critical, not only for the shark's safety, but for our human safety. Shark's mouth is literally full of razor blades. It is not a fun experience to get bitten by a shark. And I've fortunately never had that, but I have cut myself on shark jaws before while cleaning them, and it is not a fun experience. So, it's incredible how easily they slice, like the teeth slice. I was working on sandbar shark jaws when that happened. Unfortunately, it was a minor injury, but it was just like, it's Ooh, it is. It is. It's not good. So, and then resuscitate sharks before release. I just had this funny mental image of giving mouth to mouth to a shark that may have teeth full of, like a mouthful of razor blades. So, but resuscitate sharks before release by pulling them slowly while in the water so that oxygen goes through their gills. So this is a good practice that I do see people do, kind of guiding the shark, either kind of like pushing along where, and actually a good way to hold sharks, if it's a small shark, having your thumbs underneath the jaw. But you have to be careful not to hold on too tight so that the gills are not crushed or not squished so that the shark can breathe freely. Larger sharks, I've heard of people kind of like guiding them through the water as to kind of help in that resuscitation process. But anyway, these are good little tips just in general. So, yep. Yep. Sorry, I just saw this comment. Just dredging, bottom trawling is beloved. Yes, I'm going to start that because yes, 100%. So, Sharks of the Caribbean looks like we're going to start with our first species. So, this is kind of cool. Or very cool actually, the blunt-nosed six-gill shark. So, this is one we're very familiar with. We've seen a lot. This shark has actually appeared in a lot of our episodes just because it's a fairly cosmopolitan species. So, ways to identify the species are relatively small eyes, the 6 gill slits, 1 dorsal fin. The proportion where the distance is slightly larger than the dorsal fin base length. If there's anything that's kind of like length measurements, I'll try to maybe like not focus in on those because there's going to be probably a lot of sharks to cover tonight. So, but really beautiful shark, huge animal. For size, you can see that the size of maturity is about 3 meters, which is like over 10 feet. You could compare this to a human. It's a massive shark. We like to kind of describe these as the white sharks of the deep. They are huge, huge animals. Pretty unique and gnarly set of teeth, where you have these multi-cusp teeth that are described as comb-like. The upper teeth are for gripping, but the lower teeth are for shearing. These sharks kind of swim in the bottom of the ocean looking for whale fall, like a dead sperm whale or... a sperm whale would probably be a good example for the Caribbean, but like a dead sperm whale on the seafloor, the shark will like swim towards the carcass, take a huge bite, and then kind of wriggle its body back and forth to try to like shear this off with these really incredible lower teeth. So this great footage of 6-gill sharks on YouTube. We've seen a couple clips before. Just really incredible species overall. Here's a photo of this. Looks like a little individual with a really pretty line here. This almost looks parallel to the lateral line. And I don't know if this is the lateral line, but and I think we're familiar with it, but the lateral line is the pressure sensing feature that sharks and bony fish both have. It's a series of little canals that feel changes in water pressure, so it's kind of like a sixth sense that sharks have. What's kind of cool is that sharks have, I guess you could describe that sharks have 7 senses because you have like sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound, but you also have pressure in the form of the lateral line, and then of course you have the electromagnetic sense with the ampullae lorenzini at the snout. So for this shark, it runs into bottom trawling, long lines, and gill nets, and it is a deep water species that spends its time in the bottom. So it does live in the Caribbean, but it spends most of its time in the deeper waters. So this is a creature of the abyss. So very, very, very cool deep water shark found in most parts of the world. Similar species are Hexantius nakamori. I think that's called a broad-nosed 6-gill. Heptranchius perla, which is 7-gill shark. Really great illustration, by the way. And these are fantastic illustrations. I think we've only seen them once or twice before on the stream. And it looks like these species don't really quite live in the Caribbean, but these are just comparisons to the 6-gill shark. 7-gill shark, of course, has 7 gills. And also just has a bit of a sleeker look, I would say, than a 6-gill shark overall. Everything looks a little bit more pointed and sharper with 7-gill sharks, and they don't achieve that same size. They're kind of a third of the size or half the size of 6 gills. Next species is Squalus cubensis, or the Cuban dogfish. So very beautiful shark, where you have a very large first dorsal fin spine, really pretty dark patches on the 2 dorsal fins, and actually a nice mix of dark and light coloration in the caudal fin as well. Strongly concave pectoral fin posterior margins and very pointed posterior tips. But overall, I think with the coloration of the dorsal fins and the very large spine in front of the first dorsal fin, I think this is a pretty easy species to identify. So, Sulfate bead injured by the skeletal remains of the animal just makes them that much more scary. Yeah, yeah. It was an interesting education in terms of having that respect for just how these animals have evolved. Just really, it's kind of amazing too, because it's the same material as fingernails or hair. Keratin, like shark's teeth, are keratin based, and yet if it's formed in a specific way, it could be just this incredibly sharp thing. So Cuban dogfish, really, really pretty. It's probably one of the prettiest squall forms, or the prettiest kinds of dogfish. I just love this color pattern overall. And here is an example, a photograph example, where we have reflective eyes. This is a very little individual. You can see the dark fin tips with the kind of light cream-colored margins, which is very, very pretty. Small kind of shark, so size of maturity is about 1/2 meter, so maybe a foot. Maximum size is about 3 feet. Great illustration of the dogfish teeth on the left here. So they're these interlocking, kind of flattened blades. So they're kind of like chainsaw teeth, but they also have a little bit of a roundedness to them that helps them crush through shells. So great kinds of teeth for crab shells, but also the teeth kind of work together to be a single cutting edge that helps take chunks out of large prey items too. One thing I noticed on this guide is that it's actually giving the depth limits for the shark. So for that 6-gill shark, you can see the depth limit is 1875 meters, so that is a midnight zone shark. So maximum depth is way in the midnight zone where there's no sunlight. For the Cuban dogfish, this is a twilight zone shark that lives 380 meters, so you get a little bit of light. And you can see that it is a deep water species that spends its time near the bottom. And it's kind of cool where sharks living near the bottom, they benefit from looking for animals that might be scurrying across the seabed or living in the seabed. So mostly invertebrates or other or fish. Another kind of species we have in the Caribbean, and I'm not as familiar with this, is the Squalus mitsukurii, the short-spined spur dog. So this one's a little bit different. So we have the spine on the first dorsal fin. Really cool eyes, by the way. These are clearly shorter spines than the Cuban dogfish. There's no dark patches in the dorsal fins. And posterior tips of pectoral fins rounded. What's interesting is that the teeth are actually a little bit more elevated. You can see that the blades are a little bit higher, so it's kind of cool. It's the same genus of shark, but a little bit of a different tooth type. And it looks very similar to the Cuban dogfish, but the coloration is very different. Where it doesn't have like those black marches or black blotches, and then the white margins. Kind of a medium-sized shark, small shark, so a foot to about 3 feet, size of maturity, and that's close to maximum size too. And this is a deeper water shark that also lives in the twilight zone, but can go a little bit, or actually significantly deeper than the Cuban dogfish. And then bottom trawling, gill nets, and lull lines affect the species as well. So it looks like we're going to move to... Oh, big ol' eyes too, yeah. Speaking of big eyes, we've got the big eye thresher, Elopia superciliosus. So it's kind of cool in this Caribbean guide. We breeze through Hexantiforms and Squaliforms. So there's only one Hexantiform and two Squaliforms, and now we're going to go into um, the lamniforms. So the mackerel sharks. So Elopia superciliosus, the big eye thresher. This one is really interesting, where the eyes are huge, and they also kind of bulge, where they can see there's like an open space at the top of the head. I wonder if they can show. Yeah, there we go. So this actually, it's a little freaky, but this is the top of the head looking down, and you can see you could very clearly see the eyes, from the top of the shark. So if we were looking straight down at the shark, you would still see these eyes very prominently, which is a little creepy looking, a little eerie. But it's a very unique adaptation where these sharks presumably evolved this way to kind of help with locating prey items as they arch their back and whip their tail to stun them. So big eye threshers, like other kinds of thresher sharks, once they hone in on a prey item, they will arch their back and use their tail kind of like a bullwhip to stun prey items. And I imagine, I'm using these terms like I imagine or I presume because I forget if this was confirmed in literature, but I think it's not really that much of a leap to say if a shark has this adaptation and it has an extremely long tail, it is probably very useful for the shark to have this wider range of sight to help see prey items as it's like arching its back, tilting its body, and trying to find that right angle to hit their prey. So thresher sharks are such a unique group of sharks and very extreme in their adaptation in terms of having the long upper caudal lobe of the tail that again acts like a bullwhip to stun prey items. The origin of first dorsal fin far from the end of the pectoral fin, so there's a huge gap between the dorsal fin and the pectoral fins. Thresher sharks are very energy efficient predators that move very quickly. What's interesting is that this size chart is a little deceptive because the shark is not. The shark is very long because of the tail, but mass-wise, it's not really a giant because almost half the body length is the tail itself. So it's saying that it could achieve about 3 meters or about 9 to 10 feet, but a lot of that is the tail. So it's like the shark itself is maybe 6 feet before you get to the tail, but still a very large kind of shark. What's also interesting is look how large that pelvic fin is. It's actually very extreme as far as, and it probably helps balance the total fin space for the shark. What's kind of cool about shark evolution across species is that each fin is proportional to the other fin. So the size and the shape directly impacts or affects the evolution. The size and shape of one fin directly impacts or affects the size and shape of the other fins. It all helps to achieve a ideal kind of movement based on the shark's lifestyle. So it's really cool. It's like if the shark had all these other fins, but the pelvic fin was shaped differently, if it was smaller, it just wouldn't be as efficient of a hunter. It wouldn't move as efficiently as it would with this unique fin shape here. So it's really cool to kind of think about. Here's an example of a big eye thresher, very large pectoral fins. Really interesting to see this kind of like hump, right before the head. And then of course that elongated tail. This is a pelagic species, or coastal pelagic, I should say. So it does spend its time in the open ocean, but it also can venture inshore to the coastline as well to hunt for fish. But sticks within the sunlit and twilight zone, so maximum depth at 600 meters. In the Caribbean, we have another kind of thresher. So the classic one, Elopius vulpinus, also known as the fox shark, but thresher shark, the classic thresher shark. What's cool about classic thresher sharks is that they have a very distinct color pattern, where very sharp demarcation of gray, slaty gray on the dorsal side of the body, and then a nice white coloring on the bottom. So kind of similar to a great white shark. Um, yeah, eyes are definitely freaky, but it's a scary type of freak that makes you feel maternal. Love that comment, Minjas. Here's a nice picture of a thresher shark, and these I think are the largest of the family. So of the three thresher sharks, I'm pretty sure the classic thresher, which is it's just called thresher shark, but pretty sure it's the largest. Maximum size is about 5.7 meters or 6 meters, so that's almost the maximum size of a white shark. But again, a lot of that is the tail. And this tail is a little bit longer proportionally than the pelagic thresher, and it is in this kind of like deadly sword point. It's so interesting. So, what a incredible group of sharks that's just so unique in their evolution. It's cool to see that thresher sharks occupy the Caribbean. Like the big eye thresher, the thresher spends its time in the open ocean and the coast, and it also is in a similar depth regime of 640 meters maximum. So that's twilight zone at the deepest, but mostly in the tropical sunlit zone. Of course, we have white sharks in the Caribbean, so Carcharodon carcharias, which might seem like a surprise because this shark is classically described as a cold water shark. But if you were here for Sharks of North America, like the Sharks of North America episode that we did, the first part of that episode really took a dark turn where we were reading one of the oldest shark attack accounts ascribed from the Americas, and it was about white sharks hunting pearl divers, and it was completely horrifying. But it also was revealing that white sharks used to have a bigger presence in the Caribbean because they would hunt the Caribbean monk seal, which is now extinct. So when the monk seal was alive, these sharks would spend more time in these waters, and then with the monk seal going extinct, they've kind of migrated out for the most part, but you can still find them. So white shark, just iconic. We all know really what it looks like. Very small second dorsal fin, crescent-shaped caudal fin, so beautifully designed to build up speed and launch this massive animal out of the water to collide into prey. Distinctive large teeth, very huge head, distinctive coloration with the dark gray slaty color, sharply demarcated from the white below, which is where it gets its name. It is the first shark we've seen here that is CITES protected, so CITES Appendix 2. And maximum size is 640, so about 6 meters or 21 feet. Size of maturity is about 5 meters or 16 feet, which is incredible. Great photo of this one's hard to gauge its size. Actually, this looks like a pretty sizable individual. It could be like I want to say that could be like a 6-foot shark or 8-foot shark. It's a little hard to tell because it looks somewhat younger, but not like a pup. It looks like it has a little bit of girth on it here. So really beautiful female shark. You can see the very large gill slits. Again, it helps maximize oxygen intake as these powerful predators swim, or aiding these powerful predators to swim at high speeds through the ocean. You have the unique serrated teeth. So most sharks don't have teeth like this, but white sharks have uniquely evolved to have broad triangular teeth with very large serrations. So this is designed to take a huge chunk out of marine mammals or other large prey items. Any shark with this kind of tooth type is very deadly and very dangerous, so a good shark to kind of maybe stay away from. All sharks have a kind of sharp tooth, or almost every shark has a kind of sharp tooth, but white sharks in particular, it's one of a very remarkably small group of sharks that has broad triangular teeth with large serrations designed for handling large prey. So pretty interesting how that tooth type is unique. What's also interesting is you can see the white shark occupies a lot of different habitats. It can go into the midnight zone, but it spends its time anywhere in kind of like the upper water column, so in the pelagic ocean, but also very close to the coast. So mako sharks like to spend their time offshore, but white sharks like to spend their time inshore which makes sense because that's where seals spend most of the time is inshore. So you think such a large shark, you would kind of instinctively maybe think it spends its time more in the deep water or in like the open ocean, but really white sharks are the ones that are coastal, whereas mako sharks are the ones that are pelagic. So kind of interesting. Speaking of makos, oh, actually, this is a species comparison. I'm sure we'll get to both of these because both are in the Caribbean. We've got the short fin mako, Isurus oxyrhynchus, which is more slender and also has more slender teeth. And then Isurus pacus, also a slender shark. This is a long fin mako with the long fins and also slender teeth. And then the basking shark, I would be surprised if this is in the Caribbean because this is a very, very cold water shark, but we'll see as we kind of read on. So it's kind of cool to see that basket sharks they're kind of like toothless great whites, and of course they have teeth, but they're very, very small teeth. So, but otherwise they superficially really look like great whites as far as like having the same large pectoral fin, large dorsal fin, small second dorsal fin, and then crescent-shaped caudal fin. Short fin mako, Isurus oxyrhynchus, so very cool resident of the Caribbean. You might have been here when I shared, I think it was Dr. Abel, Dan Abel, who described the mako shark as if he had to pick, like every shark is perfect, so to speak, in the sense that any shark that has evolved to survive in today's oceans is perfectly fit for their present environment. But if he had to pick a quote-unquote perfect shark, he would always pick the mako. Just their energy efficiency is incredible. The amount of work they can do with the minimum input between like how they maximize their nutrient intake, how they maximize oxygen intake, just the speeds that they can achieve. They are incredible predators. Very strong caudal keel that helps them slice through the water and build up speed. Conical head. Characteristic of the lambda-forms, narrow pectoral fins, very pointed snout, and then uniquely slender teeth here. Beautiful view of a mako shark. So you'd almost be tempted to say it's a white shark, but you can kind of tell that the eyes are larger, the teeth are a lot narrower. The pectoral fins are a bit shorter too. So there, you could see how it's a shark that is definitely in the same family as white sharks, but it's much more slender. Still can be a pretty large size. So maximum size at 4 meters, it's about 12 feet. And size of maturity about 6 feet or 2 meters. This is interesting. So in this guide, it's saying that mako sharks can also be coastal. They spend their time coastal or coastal pelagic environments. Where I am in the Virginian, mako sharks are definitely offshore. They don't really come close to inshore. White sharks come close to inshore, but mako sharks, they spend their time offshore. So it's kind of cool to see in the Caribbean. It's a little bit different. Like their ecological niche seems to be a little bit closer inshore than white sharks. And it's actually also cool to see that they occupy both the twilight zone and the sunlit zone, whereas white sharks can go a little bit deeper. So. Oh, this is cool. Sorry, I just saw this comment. Minja's facts like that help remind me that the ocean doesn't follow the same rules as land. Like, I literally never would have realized big ol' eyes arch while hunting better view in the water. So, that's really cool. And that hits on a really cool point where I love that when you... Like, it sounds so silly, but it like I definitely agree with you where it's like, it sounds so silly, but, when you think about marine life, and the rules that completely change because the medium completely changes. It's so interesting that it's a completely different mindset than terrestrial life, where the big one for me is sound. So sound here acts very, very differently than sound in the water. Sound travels so much more quickly in water, and that kind of affects things or density. Like water is much more dense than air. So these animals, like these sharks, are so heavy compared to similarly sized land animals. Like land animals have to be a bit lighter so they can, support their own weight. But sharks, or other kinds of like marine animals, their density is a lot heavier so that they can kind of maintain their buoyancy in the dense medium in water. So it's like things like that. It's just like the evolution is just so different, and really so fascinating. When you think of respiration too, where sharks and fish, they are constantly surrounded by water, so their gills constantly have moisture that's required, or sorry, not moisture, water that's required to aid in oxygen exchange. Whereas terrestrial animals, we have to drink water to maintain water to make sure that we, have moisture on our lungs, which helps with oxygen exchange. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of cool to see how the two worlds are so different. The last one is plants, where in terrestrial ecosystems, plants are a huge part of the terrestrial world, and arguably maybe the dominant part of the terrestrial world. I'm not really sure the ratio of plants to animals, but in the ocean, it's completely different. The ocean, it's an animal world. It's very, very, very strongly, as far as like large, organisms. It's very biased towards animals, where there's hardly any marine plants proportionally. So there's no such thing as great trees underwater or anything. You have kelp, which is an algae. You have seagrass, which is like small plants, but you don't have anything comparable to the biodiversity and the size of plants on land. So it's kind of cool to see there's just like little differences here and there, where that medium of water versus the medium of air, they have such profound impacts on how animals evolve. It's really interesting. Moving on to Icerus pacus, the longfin mako. It's really cool to see the species, because this one is not talked about as much as the shortfin mako. It's superficially very similar to the shortfin, except for these very long pectoral fins. And I'm really glad that we covered both species on this channel. So we have episodes of both shortfin and longfin makos. Similarly sized, these actually get a little bit larger than the shortfin mako. Here's a great photo of a longfin mako with these characteristic long pectoral fins, and actually this really pretty iridescent blue sheen on its back. So like most of their plants are actually animals, so obvious it feels. No, but I hear you. Yeah, I completely agree, and it's one of those things. I totally have those moments as well, where it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that totally lines up, but I don't know why I didn't think about that before. But yeah, I mean, and it's just like it's kind of cool, where it's like it's endless discovery, or lifelong learning. I have a friend who likes the phrase lifelong learning, and I definitely ascribe to that, because it's so true. You just when you think you got it, there's always a rule or an exception or something you learn that's like, oh my gosh, how did I not see that before? So. What's kind of cool is that this longfin mako is occupying a niche that I'm familiar with as far as mako sharks go. So this is what I think of as far as mako sharks, where they're pelagic animals. They like to be offshore. They don't really like to be near the coast. So it's kind of interesting in the Caribbean that the shortfin mako definitely seems to strongly favor being inshore, but the longfin mako likes to be offshore. So maybe that's how they cohabit, where longfin mako is kind of more specialized to be a pelagic predator, and shortfin is coastal. So interesting. Moving on to Ovectolobiforms, we've got the nurse shark, Gingulomastoma serratum. These guys are everywhere in the tropics. And they're really fun sharks, in the sense of they're like couch potato sharks, and they attain huge sizes too. And they're actually voracious as well. So they look cute, but they are very hungry. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about people feeding nurse sharks from the dock in tropical places. They spend a lot of their days sleeping on the seabed, and at night they hunt actively through seagrass or corals. They have this really unique feeding where they have kind of like this suction power, like a vacuum, and they can violently suck out conches from their shells, or kind of slam lobsters in the rocks and kind of suck their flesh out of shells as well. So Really cool sharks, and really cool to see that they're cousins of whale sharks that have adopted a more benthic lifestyle. You have small mouth with whiskers placed all the way at the front of the snout. So these whiskers are sensory barbels that help the shark, um, sense prey items underwater. And they again attain pretty large sizes, so they could be 3 meters maximum, or about 10 feet. Size of maturity is 2 meters or 6 feet, so it's a pretty large shark. Love the tail of the nurse shark, where the upper caudal fin is pretty long with a short lower lobe, so it's this kind of very elegant billowing sort of shape. And these sharks just, again, they are like couch potatoes. They spend their time just laying on the seabed, and they're just you know they're very lackadaisical sharks, but they're sharks that do get aggressive if they're harassed. So sometimes divers make the mistake of getting a little too close to these sharks or touching them, which they shouldn't do to begin with, and these sharks will bite. And there have been a few nurse shark incidents, but they're all provoked. This is a species just always to leave alone. It's really cool to see that the nurse shark lives exclusively in the sunlit zone, so 130 meters, and on the coastal seabed. So they're sharks that spend their time relaxing on the bottom of the shallow waters of the Caribbean. We've got our next sight species, the classic whale shark, Rhynchodon typus. So famously the largest shark in the ocean and largest fish in the sea. What more can you say? It's unmistakable with the classic spotted pattern on its back, but also these really strong ridges on its kind of like its trunk area. So beginning with the pectoral fin all the way down. The beautiful black background with the white spots. Each whale shark has a unique set of spots. It's kind of similar to humpback whales, where no two individuals look the same. Same with whale sharks. You can actually identify them based on their spot pattern, which is a really cool project that a couple people have undertaken. The maximum size, wow, firstly, size of maturity, let's look at that. The size of maturity for a female whale shark is 10 meters or 33 feet. For an adult whale shark, that's about 14 meters or 46 feet. It's gargantuan. It is an unbelievably huge animal. Of course, whale sharks are plankton feeders. They do feed on small fish too. This one actually looks like a pup. This looks like a little whale shark. And I'm not sure. I don't think we really quite know exactly where this species pups. But it's really cool to kind of see a juvenile whale shark having the gorgeous pattern, but on a smaller scale. Whale sharks occupy a lot of different zones, so they can be coastal, but they can also be pelagic. They're great ocean wanderers that do move across basins, and actually, a lot of the tropical whale sharks do come up our coast in the summer. We saw one. I didn't see one, but one tour operator that I sometimes go out to sea with saw one this year off. I want to say that one was off Norfolk Canyon as well, but they do spend their time cruising the Gulf Stream offshore canyons in the summer, which is so cool. So I would love to see one of these one day. And there's actually great whale shark diving opportunities in the Pacific coast of Mexico. I think Baja California is a place you could dive with whale sharks. Aside from sunning themselves at the surface or spending their time on the coast, whale sharks can also be found in very deep water, 1928 meters, so very, very deep in the midnight zone. So really incredible Caribbean species. We have the dusky smoothhound, Musselus canis. So we're moving on to Carcharodontiforms, but Musselus canis, dusky smoothhound. This is a really cool shark that I really love, where they're very populous up here, but it's one of the very few shark species that can change color, where it can darken or lighten its skin depending on the substrate that it's swimming over. So over sandy areas, it can lighten its color, and over muddy areas, it can darken its color. Smoothhounds have such a characteristic look of the two high dorsal fins, very streamlined body with a little bit of girth near the front. Really beautiful eyes, and kind of like this cool, like, I want to say that it's like they came out of like a Greek fresco. There's something about Smoothhounds that just looks so unique and just fascinating looking. This illustration actually doesn't quite capture it. I wonder if the picture will. Yeah, a little bit. So this is actually a larger individual, where you can see that those beautiful, beautiful eyes and kind of like the ridge above them, giving it a really interesting look. They look like an intermediary between like a cat shark and a requiem shark. So I love the smoothhounds or the hound sharks in that they're kind of like right in the middle. These guys are specialized shellfish eaters, so they actually have flattened teeth that work as a single pavement structure or pavement-like structure that crushes shells, kind of grinding the teeth together. And yeah, they are just sharks that like to spend their time in the seabed hunting for invertebrates. So here in the Caribbean, this species actually occupies up to 150 meters, so it's a very shallow bottom-dwelling species in shallow sunlit waters. What's interesting is other parts of the world, this shark has island subpopulations that go deeper, but it looks like this is a subspecies. This is the same subspecies as the one that occurs on my coast, in that it spends most of its time on the continental shelf. So. Similar kinds of smoothhounds. This one I'm not familiar with, Musselus higmani. So hopefully we might learn more about it later. It looks a little bit more elongated than the dusky smoothhound. Musselus minicanus looks like it has a larger first dorsal fin and a kind of like a hump, behind its head. And then Musselus norrisii. This one I should be familiar with. I can't remember at the top of my head what species this is, but it's kind of cool to see multiple kinds of smoothhounds in the Caribbean. So Musselus higmani is a small-eye smoothhound. This one I'm not familiar with. And this might be kind of a cool one to do a stream on, because I would love to kind of go back to at least a few single shark stream episodes. So let's see. Oh, Minjas, I feel like you mentioned it before, but whale sharks being coastal is still so insane to me. It's really cool, isn't it? Where they kind of occupy multiple habitats, so it's kind of cool that they switch back and forth from coastal to pelagic. I need to head out, but thank you so much for Shark Study Party. Excited for next week. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you have a great week, and hopefully I'll have some fun news as far as scuba stuff for next week's stream. So I will definitely post on the community page if anything interesting happened over this week's dive. So, but until then, hope you have a great week, Minjas, and we'll continue on smoothhound sharks of the Caribbean. Now this is really cool. This photo is showing a unique coloration pattern here on the smoothhound, where it looks like a yellow streak on the upper second dorsal fin and the upper caudal fin. What makes that really interesting is that there's a different kind of smoothhound in South America, and I think it's called the striped smoothhound, but it has yellow coloration, and yellow is kind of an uncommon color in sharks, so it's kind of cool to see. I know this guide doesn't illustrate it, but yeah, that's very clear in the photograph here. This is a very small shark, so not even achieving a meter, so it's about maybe a foot. And it looks like it spends its time at the seabed, so whether it's shallow, the bottom of shallow waters or the slope of deeper twilight zone waters. It's going to compare it again to the dusky smoothhound, Musselus minicanus, and Musselus norrisii, so we'll keep going. Oh, and it looks like the only two species here in the Caribbean are dusky smoothhound and the small-eye smoothhound, because it looks like our next species is the classic scalped hammerhead, Sirena lewinii. So we talked about the species a lot on this channel. This is also CITES Appendix 2, so as it should be. Again, these are very sensitive sharks that deserve a lot of attention. They're critically endangered species. Obviously, scalped hammerheads have the hammerhead, and the distinction for this species amongst other hammerheads is that there's the divot here. The anterior margin of the head convex with a strong notch in the middle. This is the thing that identifies the species from other kinds of hammerheads. This is the classic hammerhead that's featured on pretty much any nature special you've seen. It's the most iconic hammerhead aside from the great hammerhead shark, and it just has just incredible. I mean, it's just like an incredible shark where it's famous for migrating over great distances in huge schools, following magnetic fields around the Earth. I mean, it's one of my favorites, just in general, because it's just such a cool cosmopolitan species. Great photograph of the scalped hammerhead where you can kind of see just by this little tilt of the cephalofoil, the scalp shape here. So really great view of the species. And then you can see that the shark is a coastal animal, but also spends time offshore. So the hammerhead that I keep talking about, I saw on a pelagic tour. So in its offshore environment, where these guys like to hunt for squid, they will go down into deeper water to do their hunting, and then will come up to the sun at the surface. But these sharks also love to come inshore to hunt for like stingrays or small fishes, and get close to estuaries as well. Similar species that they're going to compare this to are the great hammerhead, which we'll probably see in a second, and the smooth hammerhead, Sphyrina zygaena, and also the small eye hammerhead, Sphyrina tudes. So I'm excited to see. I didn't realize that this species was in the Caribbean. So hopefully it is. We'll kind of see as we read. Next hammerhead species is the great hammerhead, Sphyrina makron. So this is the largest of the hammerheads. Size and maturity about 3 meters, or about nearly 10 feet. But maximum size apparently is 6 meters, which is comparable to a white shark, which is incredible. So that's about 20 feet. It's incredible. These are extreme-looking sharks with very tall falcate first dorsal fin. Very pointed features as far as everywhere on its body, from the pelvic fins to the cosmos, sharp sickle shape. They're very intimidating looking sharks, but they really don't pose a threat to humans. They're like more like fish eaters. They have like classic T-bone-shaped head where it otherwise looks like a scalped hammerhead. It does have the notch in the middle, but it's a straight shape, so it doesn't bend or curve like the scalped hammerhead. The cephalofoil is just this classic straight line. So. Great photo. Well, it's kind of sad seeing this is a very large individual in this photograph that looks like was landed for some time, because you can see that the color is darkened, and you can see actually some flesh wounds here too. So this was it's really sad to see that the shark was fished. Probably a couple hours before this photo was taken. But still, a large individual where you can kind of very clearly see the distinctive features of the species. Interesting that in the Caribbean, it looks like the shark occupies the upper water column at only 80 meters. So that's upper sunlit zone. So also, I am so sorry I have to do this, but my housemate is texting me really quickly, so I'm going to dash away to check on our breaker. I'm so sorry to do this, but while I'm doing this, I'm going to leave you guys really quickly with some shark footage of bull sharks in the Caribbean. And we'll get to this in our shark identification guide, but this is bull sharks in a famous spot, the Caribbean, Playa del Carmen in Mexico. So I will be right back, but until then, please enjoy some footage of Carcharodontis leucus, the bull shark in the Caribbean Sea, and I will be right back. Okay. Oh no! Oh my gosh, I did not. I hate this company. I am so sorry to leave you guys with an ad from. That sucks. Okay, sorry about that. That really sucks. You might have seen me kind of look away earlier. I was just getting multiple texts from our housemate on something. But all is well. But I am so sorry that apparently that clip of Bull Sharks switched to an ad from a company I can't stand. So, but I'm glad there's at least a little bit of footage of Bull Sharks in a very famous spot, Playa del Carmen. Very famous spot where you can actually see a lot of individuals. You can actually see that it's one of those places in the world where you can safely dive with bull sharks. I've never heard of an incident in Playa del Carmen, and it's really impressive because I mean this is one of the more dangerous shark species. Related to how I was sharing earlier on the stream that white sharks have a unique tooth type designed to hunt bigger prey items like marine mammals. So do bull sharks. Bull sharks similarly have large triangular shaped teeth with large coarse serrations that are unique for hunting large prey items like marine mammals, sea turtles. I've even heard of them going after dogs, pigs. It's dolphins. It's just kind of incredible and really frightening what bull sharks are able to handle. And actually, this is a bit of a scary dive situation because these are all bull sharks right here, and there's maybe 15 individuals in this one location. So, but I've heard it's one of the best dive locations for bull sharks in the world, and just what a treat, but also really really freaky to see. Just gonna see this clip really quick, and then we'll head back to species identification. And I'm sure I know the bull shark is going to show up in our guide. This is a very populous tropical species that could be found in the Bahamas and most parts of the Caribbean as well. So look at the size of them too, man. And they're all the same species. They're all bull sharks. So, I mean, just dwarfing that diver, I would really not be comfortable in this situation personally. I mean, these are huge, huge sharks with so much muscle behind them. You can see this individual actually has some hook damage, so its jaw is a little bit askew, and that's from an old fishing wound. Yeah, this same individual here, you can actually see it's really sad. It actually kind of ties in a weird way back to that beginning of the guide about how to safely release sharks, or what kind of hook types to use because that individual suffered jaw damage. It's reassuring to see that that individual is still large because it implies that it could still hunt. But a lot of sharks, once they receive jaw damage, aren't able to go after prey items, and unfortunately, have an early demise because of that. So it's very, very important to safely remove hooks from sharks. If it's safe to do so, it's very, very important to do so if a shark is accidentally hooked. So. And look at this one. This one actually is biting this diver. Took me a little too long to notice. The divers are wearing chainmail suits. So this is a kind of an old school shark protection device that has been around for a couple decades. But chainmail suits are essentially suits of armor that help when a shark gets a little too frisky and kind of bites into a diver. At least it offers some kind of protection. Although the pressure from that bite probably still would not be fun to experience. That being said, these sharks are probably doing a lot of test bites. So a lot of sharks, they will use their mouths, kind of like the way we use our hands, where they're not necessarily, being aggressive. They're just kind of being more curious. So the bites are more kind of like testing out or a way to sort of interact with the surroundings and see what's going on. But it's still, when you have a mouthful of razor blades, it's still a very concerning experience when that's going on. So, but yeah, really cool dive opportunity in Playa del Carmen. And no more ads. This is time. Just can't stand the ads. This is time to switch back to our shark guide. So we left off at Great Hammerhead. We'll keep going. Oh, the bonnethead, Sphyrna tubero. So great species. So really cool to see that this is also in the Caribbean. I mean, it makes sense. It's a classic tropical Atlantic species. But Sphyrna tubero is the smallest of the hammerheads. It has a beautiful coloration where it has this like really pretty assemblage of speckles on its back. And also has the smallest cephalofoil. So these hammerheads have a unique shovel-shaped head. No other hammerhead shark really looks quite like this. And again, they're the smallest hammerhead, reaching about 1.5 meters, or about maybe 2 feet long. So they're unmistakable because of the cephalofoil. Their anal fin is also a little bit more elongated, but really that cephalofoil is going to be the key feature to identify the species. They're really cool in the sense that they spend a lot of time in shallow water. And it's a shark that a lot of people in tropics can pretty easily interact with. So restricted to 80 meters, it's a shallow water shark that spends its time. I would actually say that this shark would spend its time in the estuaries as well. So in addition to where it's depicted to be in shallow demersal environments, I would say it also goes into estuaries personally. This is actually really cool that this FAO guide is comparing bonnethead sharks to Sphyrna tudes and Sphyrna media. So this is the small eye hammerhead, and I want to say this is the scalped bonnethead or the mallet head. So it's great that we're getting all of them here. So I think we'll just kind of keep going. I love that Caribbean seems to be a hammerhead stronghold because now we have Sphyrna tudes, the small eye hammerhead. This is a lesser known hammerhead that is also critically endangered, similar to the scalped hammerhead. I'm actually quite curious what makes this species unique. So the origin of the first dorsal fin is just behind the pectoral fin insertion. So it looks like the first dorsal fin is higher on the body. The free rear tip of the first dorsal fin over or behind the pelvic fin origins. Posterior margin of the anal fin nearly straight. Really, the position of the first dorsal fin is the thing that kind of would indicate to me that it's a different species. The head shape is quite different too. So the head is mallet-like in shape with eyes on the sides of mallet-like projections. And then the interior margin of the head is deeply notched in the middle. So it's a kind of an unusual head shape, and it definitely does look very different from a scalped hammerhead. This is a very small shark that lives in a very restricted range of only 12 meters. So that's extremely shallow water. So a coastal species this is a big reason why it's critically endangered, is that it can't find refuge at depth. It can't go into deeper water to escape human fishing pressure or developmental pressure. Its mangrove habitat, or the habitat that it uses as a nursery, a lot of areas have developed mangroves in either to shrimp farms or residential developments. And unfortunately, this has had a very negative impact on the shark's nursery habitat. And on top of that, there's just so much fishing pressure anyway from humans that, because the shark doesn't occupy deeper water, it kind of runs into that fishing pressure more often than other kinds of hammerhead species. So it looks like this guide has the scalped hammerhead, bonnethead, and Sphyrna media as a reference. And we saw that small eye hammerhead, great hammerhead, scalped hammerhead, bonnethead all live in the Caribbean. It looks like Sphyrna media is just more of a referenced shark, and it looks like it won't get its own page because the next species is the tiger shark, Gallicero cuvier. So I'm going to just take a quick drink of water. Of course, this species lives in the Caribbean. Tiger shark is like the apex predator of tropical environments around the world. We talked a lot about it last week on last week's stream, so I won't spend too much time on tigers, other than just to talk about their remarkable size. Size of maturity is about 3 meters, so that's 9 to 10 feet. Maximum size is 5.5 meters, so let's see how large that is in feet. That will be 18 feet, so very large shark. Tiger sharks are also in that club of sharks with unusual tooth types, in that they have large serrated teeth. These teeth are unique in that they're heart shaped, so they're not like the triangles like in bull sharks or white sharks, but they're still uniquely large and uniquely serrated, and this is something that's very different from other kinds of sharks, and this makes tiger sharks formidable predators and one of the most dangerous sharks in the world, along with bull sharks and white sharks, as well as oceanic whitetips. Beautiful photo here of a tiger shark with, and this one looks actually freshly caught because you can see that iridescent sheen. When sharks are alive and well, they have a bright iridescent color. If they are not doing well or if they are stressed, their color darkens. So this individual kind of indicates this photograph indicates a healthy individual. And this one seems to be a moderate size because juvenile tiger sharks have very bold spots. As they get older, they kind of fade into these bars. In the Caribbean, tiger sharks occupy both the pelagic and coastal environments, so they're coastal pelagic predators, and they can exist in the sunlit zone and twilight zone. We also have the blue shark, so another classic shark, Prianos glauca. This is more of an open ocean predator. Getting to about 2 meters on average, so it's about 6 feet, or nearly 4 meters maximum size, so 12 feet maximum size. These sharks have a beautiful indigo blue coloration on their back. Their first dorsal fin is set very far back in the body, and they have a uniquely long snout, large eyes, and very, very long pectoral fins. It's kind of cool to see that oceanic sharks have large pectoral fins. It probably helps, it helps them maintain a cruising speed and maintain efficiency so that the shark spends a minimum amount of energy as it's cruising through large swaths of ocean to find prey. Great photograph of a blue shark here with that. This one actually looks like it's a little bit in trouble because you can still see that beautiful blue pattern, but you can see a little bit of fade too on the coloration, so indicating that it's probably a little bit stressed out or may have been recently expired, which is very unfortunate. In life, again, they're dazzling sharks, similar to shortfin makos. They have just this glorious iridescent coloration on their backs. The tooth type of blue sharks also are really interesting, where it has large curved serrated teeth. So they're not as dangerous as white sharks or bull sharks or tiger sharks, but there have been incidents with blue sharks at sea. And these sharks are great ocean scavengers, where if there is a whale carcass floating in the middle of the ocean, these sharks will hone in right on it and take large chunks of flesh out of it. So the serrations help with that. The recurved teeth kind of imply that the shark hunts fish a little bit more exclusively than large marine mammals, but the serrations also imply that it's capable of hunting or tearing large chunks of flesh. So, and there's been many documented reports of blue sharks going after whale carcasses. So it's a shark that you probably want to be wary of in the open ocean, just with that tooth type. And you can see here in the Caribbean, it's a shark that maybe is around the shelf or spends most of its time in true pelagic environments. Love to see this next. This is the lemon shark, Negaprion brevirostris. This is such a classic tropical shark. The juveniles of this species love to spend their time in mangroves. So these are probably the poster children of sharks that use mangroves as nursery habitat. but they get to be pretty large when they reach maturity. So they are about 6 feet total length, or 2 meters, maxing out at 3 meters, or about 9 feet. Superficially, they look like a lot of requiem sharks, except for the fact that the second dorsal fin is very large. The first dorsal fin, second dorsal fin, and anal fin are all very, very large compared to other sharks, so it's kind of unmistakable, along with that classic lemony color, that yellowish olive color on its back. These sharks look scary, but they're actually pretty docile to be around. They have narrow teeth that are specialized for fishes, so they're very, very, very safe to be around compared to other kinds of shark species. And they also spend their time, similar to nurse sharks, they spend their time sitting on the, well, not sitting, but actually no, they can sit. They can sit, but resting on the bottom. I think they're a little bit more active than cruise sharks, nurse sharks, in terms of the fact that they can cruise a little bit more frequently than nurse sharks. But they still have the ability to rest on the seabed. There have been documented reports of lemon sharks giving birth while resting on the seabed, and it's just really cool to see. They occupy 92 meters, so that's sunlit zone, and again, they spend most of their time closer to the bottom. It's kind of funny that nurse sharks are depicted as a similar species, because they're not. They're very, very different. They are evolutionarily completely different, but in terms of behavior, they're both large sharks that spend time near the seabed. It's also kind of cool to see that the black nose shark is compared to the lemon shark. This one is a little bit more of an active swimmer, but still kind of cool to reference. This is interesting. I've not seen this species before. This is Rhizopriodon lalandii, or the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark. So we have the Atlantic sharp-nosed shark up here, but the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark is looks a little bit different, where the pectoral fins are a bit smaller. The first dorsal fin is right near the free rear tip of the pectoral fin, and it actually has an unusual shape too. And overall, this shark looks a little bit smaller, and the features are a little bit softer than the Atlantic sharp-nosed shark. So these sharks are really cool, where they look like requiem sharks, but they have more of a slender build, larger eyes, more pointed snout. And these are shallow water sharks that like to spend their time near the coast, especially in the surf zone, hunting small fishes. So very frequently encountered species. The Brazilian sharp-nosed shark lives in 70 meters maximum depth, so it's still very much a sunlit zone, and is also a coastal bottom dweller, so a shark that spends its time kind of near the bottom, but definitely in shallow coastal environments. And very small shark, probably the smallest shark we've seen so far in this guide, at about a half meter in terms of maturity size, so maybe about a foot. Similar species are Rhizopriodon porosus, which is the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark, and Rhizopriodon terranovi, the Atlantic sharp-nosed shark, which I referenced earlier. It's wild that the silky shark is referenced here, Calcarenus falciformis, but maybe juvenile silky sharks. Actually, no, this is wild, because these sharks are open ocean predators, so I don't know why that's listed as comparable to. That's very different than this. So, Rhizopriodon porosus, the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark. So no guide on the Caribbean would be complete without the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark. This shark is a little bit different, where it's similar to the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark, except the origin of the first dorsal fin is further back on the body. Looks like the origin of the second dorsal fin is also a bit further back too. And it looks like the dorsal fin and pectoral fins are both a bit larger than the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark. This shark in general is a little bit larger than the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark, and it superficially looks a lot like an Atlantic sharp-nosed shark. It just doesn't have the spots. Very large eyes. This is actually a great photograph of an individual that looks like it was pretty recently caught. Very large eyes, reaching about a meter total length, so about 3 feet. And really nice small teeth that are curved backwards, so for fish and invertebrates. and occupies a shallow depth range, kind of near the bottom, but definitely is a shark that likes to be in the surf zone as well, and can also be found in the twilight zone. So. Again, I don't know why it's compared to a silky shark because it's a little too different. It's already 10:30, so I'm gonna make sure we cover all the sharks in the Caribbean, and I think we'll make this a two-part episode, just like we did with the sharks in New Zealand, because there's still a lot more to cover. But we could definitely finish this guide tonight, and I think next week we'll kind of cover dive sites and more footage on sharks in the Caribbean. So. But we have Carcharodontis acronotus, the black-nosed shark. This is a subtle but really beautiful shark where it has this unique little black spot at the tip of its snout. And in life, it's really cool to see. It's kind of like a fun, unique distinction amongst the very diverse family of Carcharodontidae. So Carcharodontis acronotus also is a ridgeless shark. So you could split the Carcharodontis genus into ridgeback sharks and non-ridgeback sharks. Ridgeback sharks, if I'm not mistaken, tend to be a bit larger and grow more slowly or mature more slowly, whereas ridgeless sharks like this one are a little bit smaller typically and grow a little bit more quickly. Here's a nice photograph of a black-nosed shark here. So, and actually, what's kind of fun is that the first time I dove the Baltimore Aquarium, they actually had a black-nosed shark in the tank, but he spent his time more at the surface, so I didn't really get to interact with it as much, sadly. But they did have one in the Atlantic Coral Reef exhibit, and they may have moved it to a different exhibit, sadly, because when I went back this year, I didn't see it. But they added a couple other critters like tarpon, which is super fun. But black-nosed sharks are actually very popular aquarium sharks around the world. Atlantis in the Bahamas has black-nosed sharks. I think Moat might have black-nosed sharks in Florida. They get to be about a meter in terms of size and maturity, so about 3 feet. Maximum size is 2 meters or 6 feet, which is kind of incredible to think about, because I'm used to black-nosed sharks being very small coastal sharks. They live in the sunlit zone up to 64 meters and are definitely true coastal animals. So this is like a classic shallow water shark. But I love that little black spot on the snout that makes it a little bit distinct from others. Carcharodontis falciformis is the silky shark, the one where I am really, really strongly against comparing to sharp-nosed sharks. This is a classic pelagic species. This is a shark that really likes to spend its time offshore. It famously spends its time a lot near oil rigs. So oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. I'm not sure. Definitely in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, definitely in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Both are great locations to see silky sharks because, again, they spend their time more so in the open ocean. They don't really spend a lot of time near the coast. They're very unique in the sense that their first dorsal fin is further back on the body. Most sharks of this genus have the first dorsal fin kind of near the pectoral fin, but silkies have it very much further back on the body, and their first dorsal fin is actually kind of small, so compared to other kinds of Carcharodontis sharks. Silkies are sharks to kind of be cautious around because of the fact that they live in the open ocean and they get to be a large size, so 6 to 9 feet. They have broad tooth types, not quite as serrated as other kinds of sharks, but still, again, formidable and not a shark you want to really be around alone in an open ocean environment. This is a great photograph showing the distinctive features of a silky shark. And silky sharks also get their name from the texture of their skin. I forget what contributes to it, but I think their dermodonicals are much finer than other kinds of shark species. So what kind of results from that is that they have this like kind of silky smooth feel compared to other sharks. But for me, the big identifier is the small dorsal fin that's further back on the body. There's not really any other shark that looks like a silky shark. It's really one of a kind as far as like how it looks. And again, it's a shark that spends a lot of time in pelagic environments. So maybe it occasionally comes near the coast, but it's much more of a pelagic shark, similar to blue sharks or mako sharks. I love that the dusky shark is mentioned here as a comparable species. So these two sometimes get confused, as well as the Galapagos shark. And you really shouldn't compare it with sharp-nosed sharks. So we saw a clip of these sharks earlier, but Carcharodon lucas, the bull shark. What more can you say? This is the classic. I keep saying classic, but this is the iconic shark that enters freshwater. It's not the only shark that enters freshwater, but it's definitely the poster child of a freshwater shark, and definitely the only predatory freshwater shark or large predatory freshwater shark in the Americas. This species has also been named the Nicaragua shark or Lake Nicaragua shark. In other parts of the world, it's sometimes known as the Zambezi shark. I think there's another name for it. I want to say, I don't know if it's creek whaler, but they're huge, husky, pretty dangerous sharks. They have a stocky body that's pretty distinctive of the species. They also don't have a ridgeback, unlike other kinds of carcharodontids. And they have a pretty imposing first dorsal fin. Large, broadly triangular, kind of classic shark fin shape. You can see that the teeth are heavily serrated, so both on the uppers and the lowers, but mostly the uppers. That's a unique tooth type shared with tiger sharks, white sharks, oceanic white tips. This is what makes these sharks the dangerous species that actually are a little bit, pose a risk to humans if they're in the same environment. In this photograph, you could see just the girth on bull sharks. So, despite their length, they actually pack a lot of pounds compared to other kinds of sharks in this genus and this family. So, and their mouths are a little bit bigger proportionally than other kinds of carcharodontids. So, these sharks can handle a wide variety of prey items, and they are remarkable predators in that they can enter that freshwater environment and exploit resources that other sharks can't. So, as this guide shows, they spend most of the time, kind of cruising on the sea, near the seabed, and then entering coastal environments and estuary and freshwater environments. So these sharks will get very, very close to humans, around there's tropical warm waters around the world, but definitely in the Caribbean as well. Similar species got the black tip shark for comparison, Galapagos shark, and a sandbar shark. So great to see this species again. Black tip shark, Carcharodon lymbatus. This shark is really cool. So aside from the black tips that the species gets its name from, it also has like really kind of pointed fins, and I feel like the sharpness of the fins is a distinctive feature of the species that kind of helps people identify it. So what's unique about black tip sharks is that the anal fin does not have a black tip, but the other fins do. And this is a way to tell this species apart from the spinner shark. But black tip sharks make very very large migrations from Florida upward to the east coast of the United States. I love that this guy depicts a black tip shark as a coastal species that also enters estuaries, so it doesn't quite hit full freshwater like bull sharks, but it does go into low salinity water, probably as a refuge from predators. And they reach a pretty formidable size as well, about 2 meters or 6 feet. Here's the comparison with the spinner shark, Carcharodon brevipinna, which has a black tip on its anal fin. So this is the thing that helps identify the species versus the classic black tip shark. A tricky species to kind of identify, this one always gets me, is of course the Caribbean reef shark, Carcharodon perezii. This shark is maybe the sharkiest shark to have ever sharked in terms of it's just a very classic looking shape, and it's hard to sometimes this one, I don't know what it is, but it's hard for me to kind of identify what makes this shark unique. So according to this guide, the origin of the first dorsal fin over or slightly anterior to the pectoral fin, free rear tip, so it's similar to dusky sharks. The first dorsal fin is moderately high and falcate, so it's similar to sandbar sharks. And then a ridge on the back between dorsal fins, that's also similar to both sandbar sharks and dusky sharks. So this one is honestly really tricky for me. it's and the coloration color is I think Min just said this earlier, but color is something you shouldn't use to identify shark species. But the coloration is similar to dusky sharks and sandbar sharks. So the proportion of how all these fins work, I think, help identify the species. I mean, this, when I see this, I think it's a combination of the pectoral fin, sorry, the dorsal fin being right behind the pectoral fin and yet being higher. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this, and I don't know if I can come up with one, but it's like if you had this like matrix of sandbar shark, dusky shark, Caribbean reef shark, and it's all about fin placement and fin height. So it's like the the dusky shark has a low fin right behind the pectoral fins. The sandbar shark has a high fin right above the pectoral fins. The Caribbean reef shark has a high fin right behind the pectoral fin. So it's kind of like, it's like if you check off certain boxes, you'll get one of these species. But at first glance, especially if they're moving in the wild, it probably, it's not a shame to kind of get them confused. It's at first glance, if they're moving really quickly, it would be pretty easy, I think, to mistake some of these species. This is a great photograph of a Caribbean reef shark, by the way, in front of a beautiful coralline structure, so this is great to see. And it's a shallow water species that spends time near the seabed. Comparative species, of course, the sandbar shark, which it does have a superlatively high dorsal fin, but when these sharks are juveniles, sometimes it could be a little tricky. The Galapagos shark, and the bull shark. But bull sharks are so distinctive that I think they're easy to tell apart. Sandbar shark, Crocodilus plumbeus. This is a very charismatic species with this superlatively high dorsal fin and very large pectoral fins too. And the dorsal fin origin being right at the pectoral fin insertion. So this is a shark that is easy to identify, but sometimes you see variation within the species where at first glance you kind of have to do, sometimes you'll do a double take, but for a exemplary sandbar shark, it's unmistakable compared to other species because of that dorsal fin and where the dorsal fin is relative to the pectoral fins. And this is a good photograph of a sandbar shark here too. So sandbar shark's first dorsal fin being right at the pectoral fin insertion. This is a medium-sized shark that matures at about almost 2 meters, so maybe about 5 feet. So it's in the size class it's a little bit smaller than bull sharks or like lemon sharks, but definitely larger than small kinds of sharks like bonnetheads and sharpnose sharks. So it does have serrated teeth, and they are broadly triangular, but because of the shark's size, it really is not a threat to people. It kind of focuses more on fish and squid and invertebrates, and a really classic species that can be found in aquaria. Mostly spends its time in the sunlit zone, but it can also be found a little bit deeper in the twilight zone. Similar species is big nose shark. This species is so close in appearance that some scientists have argued that big nose shark and sandbar sharks are maybe the same, but I think right now they're treated as different species for now, but there may be some developments in the future. Dusky shark, the dorsal fin is further back on the body, so it's kind of easy to separate from sandbar sharks. And then bull shark, they're just so distinctive that that's easy to separate too. We have Carcharodontis porosus, the small tail shark. This one's really cool where it's in the same genus as bull sharks and sandbar sharks and black tip sharks, but it's much smaller. And it's a shark that does occur in the United States, but I think it's more common in the Caribbean. So it's really cool to see where it's not a shark that's talked about all too often. It's aside from the smaller size, it's really about the proportions of the fins. So the first dorsal fin is a little bit wider. This is also a ridgeless shark, so it does not have a ridge on its back. so implying a kind of a shorter life history. So smaller, probably attains maturity at a quicker age than the sharks with the ridgebacks on them. And then the relation of the pectoral fin to dorsal fin, first dorsal fin, and then anal fin to second dorsal fin. This is what helps identify the species. And also the snout is much more pointed than other kinds of Carcharodontis sharks. So really cool species that I don't really see too often, and I don't really see come up in conversation too often. But again, they actually do live in the United States, more so in the Carolinas and Florida. But they do come up, I believe they do come up to the Virginian occasionally. And they also spend their time on the coast. We have 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure I'm not missing any sharks. This is actually a fun surprise. The night shark, Carcharodontis signatus, I didn't realize that this species lived in the Caribbean, but this is a unique cousin of, similar to the small-tail shark, this is a small-sized Carcharodontis that actually occupies pelagic environments and has these beautiful reflective green eyes, and they're kind of like squid specialists. They have a more limited temperature range, and they like to focus on twilight zone environments. Sometimes come up to the surface at night, hunting squid in the open sea. So it's really cool that even though it's a small Carcharodontis shark, it doesn't really live on the coast. It spends its time in deep water environments. So it's very unique amongst this group of sharks. So, and again, in life, the eyes are just really cool in the sense that they're reflective green. It's such a unique kind of shark amongst this family. Now, I probably shouldn't say it's small because apparently size of maturity is about 2 meters. That's 6 feet. Maximum size is 2.8 meters. So that's about like 8 feet. So, I shouldn't say it's small, I guess, but definitely unique as far as its ecological niche amongst the other Carcharodontis sharks. Another open ocean Carcharodontis, another CITES species. So this one, we only had the white shark, whale shark, and now the oceanic white tip. As sharks of the Caribbean, there are CITES appendix to protected. Oceanic white tip shark is unmistakable. It is a large shark with the white tips on the dorsal and pectoral fins, as well as the pelvic and caudal fins. But also these black spots on the second dorsal and anal fins. So it's a very beautiful shark, but also a very dangerous shark. This is one of the 4 most dangerous sharks in the world, with the broad triangular upper teeth. Unique amongst sharks. These sharks hunt marine mammals pretty actively and are definitely responsible for shark attacks on people. They're open ocean voyagers that hone in on prey items in the open sea. So they occupy the same zone as makos, blue sharks, and silky sharks, but they definitely are superlatively large and I should say superlatively large. They're kind of probably comparable to silky sharks in size and mako sharks in size. But these guys hunt larger prey items. They definitely go after prey items that the other two won't. So, yeah. And they live up to 1,000 meters, so they can actually touch the midnight zone, which is wild to think about. But they spend a lot of their time in deep water or open ocean environments over deep water. So it looks like the oceanic whitetip is our last carcharodoniform shark. We still have a couple more. We might have one more, actually. It's always a pleasant surprise to see the sand devil, Squatina dumeral. So believe it or not, we have angel sharks in the east coast of, or I should say the east coast. We have angel sharks in the Caribbean, angel sharks in the Gulf of Mexico, and angel sharks in the east coast of the United States. So the sand devil is, unlike its cousins, actually a species of least concern. It's doing really well compared to other kinds of angel sharks. It's unmistakable by being flat, and actually can vary a lot in coloration. So it could be like a solid, beige or brown, or sometimes it can have like these like blue. It could be like a bluish color with like these red rosettes. So very high variability in color for this species. These sharks are actually surprisingly on the smaller side, but they do pack a punch where if if you're unfortunate enough to run into an angel shark or hook an angel shark, they will snap, and this is where they get the name sand devil from. They inflict these like really quick bites with these very needly teeth that cause a really really painful wound for anybody handling them. You can see a great illustration of the head that is flattened. These sharks like to bury themselves in the sand and wait for prey, and then snap prey items up with their jaws that kind of function like a bear trap. So they're these really cool ambush predators. But I was surprised to learn when I first kind of worked with angel sharks that they are a bit on the smaller side compared to other kinds of shark species. So size of maturity is not even a meter, so about 3 feet, and the maximum size is 1.5 meters, so maybe about 4 to 5 feet. So kind of again on the smaller side compared to sharks, other kinds of sharks, and they can live anywhere in the water column as long as it's on the bottom. So they could be in shallow coastal water or in deep water. So about 1290 meters maximum depth. So it's actually pretty deep. So the rest of this guide is going to be with rays. So if any viewers are interested in reading more, I'm just going to post the link again in the chat. Here, oops. If it will post, hold on. There we go. Okay, so FAO guides again are really great for learning, kind of great quick references to seeing what sharks live in a particular zone, and I'm glad that there is one on the Caribbean. So most of these sharks I'm familiar with, and it's actually kind of cool living on the east coast of the United States. A lot of these sharks I do run into. But there were a few pleasant surprises, like the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark is not one that I'm really quite familiar with. And there was a smoothhound, I think it was a narrowfin smoothhound, but one of the smoothhounds here, this was also a surprise that I was not really familiar with as well. So this is definitely going to be a 2-part episode because I didn't realize this guide would take as much time, but I'm glad that we were able to showcase the biodiversity of Caribbean sharks. And I think for our next part next week, we're going to go into dive operators more deeply. So giving them ample time and ample limelight as we continue our tour of Sharks of the Caribbean. So we've got a couple dive operators, but just as a preview, we've got Coral World Ocean Park, which has some information on sharks and rays that occur in these waters. We got Turks and Caicos Islands tourism guide that talks about dive opportunities with sharks in the Caribbean. So I'm super excited to dive into that next week. We also have Cancun snorkeling, so more notes about sharks in the Caribbean and beautiful pictures from whale shark, by the way. So man, it's just such a cool environment as far as tropical, clear waters. And then we actually Department of the Environment, Cayman Islands, more facts on sharks, like this little shark in the seabed and coral caves. We also have footage and a focal point for Caribbean reef sharks, so more on that next week. So I'm glad we kind of started out with a total biodiversity view for this episode, and then next week we'll continue. Next week we'll continue on more details on how to dive with these sharks and what you would encounter in the Caribbean. Or most likely encounter, and maybe other fun notes on these sharks' behavior in the Caribbean Sea. So more on that next week. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching tonight's episode. So Sharks of the Caribbean Part 1. We'll do Sharks of the Caribbean Part 2 next week. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a great week this week, and fingers crossed and wish me luck on diving this weekend. I'm hoping to run into a small shark at least. In this area, there are sand tiger sharks. It's really rare, but there are sand tiger sharks, so fingers crossed, hoping to run into one. And if I do, I promise I will definitely post it on the community page. Any photographs of any marine life will go on that page, and we'll see what we can see. But until then, cheers everybody, and thank you so much for watching. And I hope you all have a great night, and we'll tune in next week for Sharks of the Caribbean Part 2. But until then, peace. I'll see you later. Bye.